living a full and well life.
This is put together,
grow, authentic.
We feel it.
Take care of ourselves. I just want to take a quick pause to tell you that Revive is hiring. In our Miami and Pittsburgh offices, we have full and part-time W-2 and 1099 clinician positions available, and this includes both postgraduate and associate level licenses, in addition to fully licensed clinicians. In our Connecticut offices, we have full-time, fully licensed W-2 clinician positions available, including clinical supervisor opportunities. If you are interested in working for a company that values community, work-life balance, and your personal and professional growth, then we want to meet you. Find a link to our website in our bio. Hello, and welcome back to the Wishing You Well podcast, where we help you navigate your wellness journey each and every week. I'm Amy Albero.
And I'm Catherine Van Eyck. We're both licensed therapists and simplifying all things wellness for you. This week on Wishing You Well, we're talking about passion versus purpose. What's the difference? Can you find a passion if you feel like you don't have one? All that and more.
Yeah, I think these are two big questions that I hear a lot about as a therapist. So I'm glad we're chatting about it today.
Yes, me too. No, I definitely have heard this time and time again. So I think it'll be really helpful.
Great. So of course, we've got to check in though before we get into our whole passionate discussion about passions. How are you, and how's your self-care this week?
I have done like self-care overhaul. No, that's a little dramatic. Okay. I've done two things this week that I've detached myself from my child, and I'm really proud.
Same
So two of the things so one of the two, I went to a yoga class on Saturday, and I hadn't been to this yoga class in months. I did go post baby actually with her. Like, it was a postnatal series that they had going at this studio that I go to. And so I got to bring her, and she was just sleeping right next to me while I was doing it, which was great. But this was different because my husband he ended work early. He works on Saturday. So he ended work early. And it was funny because he was like, I'm ending work early Saturday, like, so we can hang out. And I was like, ooh, I'm going to go to this yoga class. That was much needed. And also that was by myself, because 3 months ago, I try to go every few months. And so 3 months ago, when I got my hair cut, when I went, I was really nervous because my baby needed to be fed a lot more often. And so I really needed to be around her. And I underestimated how much time it was going to take to do the hair. So I was rushing. I wasn't really present. I wasn't there at all. I was just I gotta get home. It wasn't fun. And so this time I had a backup plan. Also, Brett took our baby for a walk in a stroller, and they were literally outside of the salon, just on a stroll. And it was different because I knew she was taken care of by him, and she didn't need me. She didn't need to be fed. She was fine. And I could just sit and enjoy and get my hair done. And it was great.
That sounds lovely. And I imagine there might be a tiny bit of grief there too, that your baby doesn't need you as much. I mean, of course, she's still an infant.
No, you're right. And also a little mom guilt there too. As little time as I was away for this yoga class, it was 2 hours or so, and my haircut was an hour. There was still part of me that was I'm missing out on the putting her down to sleep, which I also hate doing most of the time anyway. But I'm missing out on that, and I'm not getting to be with her, and she's missing me, right? But
of course.
But I think that it also gave me a little chance to miss her. And as soon as I came out of the salon yesterday, I was like, oh, come here. I miss you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's sweet. And it's so important too, to have those breaks for yourself.
I know. Just got to work on it. So,
yeah.
So yes, I'll be doing that. How about you? How is your self-care?
So my self-care feels a little, stressful this week. Well, my week feels a little stressful, and I feel like I just need to walk you through it just to get validated about it. So on Monday night, I came back from Miami. My flight was delayed 4 hours, but by the time I got to the airport, there was another flight that was delayed 4 hours that I was able to get on. Great. Um, but the woman behind me vomited the entire time. Not great. And all of the bathrooms were out of order. Also not great. And anyway, long story short, I got home at like 1:30 on Monday morning. I had an 8 a.m. client on Tuesday. On Tuesday, I had class until 9:30. And then after that, I had to record for other podcast, Reactivity TV, until 12:30 this morning. Today, it's my husband's birthday. We're going out to dinner. That won't be an early night. Tomorrow, I have a rehearsal dinner. Friday, I have a lot of stuff to do for the wedding, which is on Saturday, and I need to be at the bride's house at 5 in the morning on Saturday. And then there's a wedding. So that'll be a late night. So I am like stressed about the lack of sleep that I already have, and then what I'm going to have. So that is like plaguing me hardcore. Because I feel like my whole life falls apart when my sleep sucks. And I feel like it's out of my control right now. So that is making me think really critically about what my self-care can be. And one thing that I'm trying to like not let go of is my workouts. Like I'm still keeping my workouts. Like after this, I have a workout class at 4:15. I'm going. I'm tired, but I feel like I still need to go and like give that back to myself. I think I'm feeling like I have no control over what my life looks like right now, which is not, it's like, that's an absurd statement, but I feel like a lot of what's happening right now is out of my control. And so I'm trying to feel like I have as much like say in my schedule as I can. So all of this to say, self-care feels really challenging this week, but I am trying to make it work. And also trying to like be graceful with myself that like my patience level is definitely lower. My frustration tolerance is lower. And just like knowing that that doesn't make me a bad person necessarily, that I'm like more irritable, but just is a reflection of my tiredness. So I'm just trying to be mindful of that.
Wow. Let me just first give you what you asked for.
Validate me. Tell me how
Oh my
hard my life
God. No,
sounds.
how are you functioning right now? That's terrible.
Yeah, I'm not doing great. I'm like really tired. Like and like body tired, brain tired, emotionally feel exhausted. And I like truly don't know what to do. Like, and this is one of those times where it's like, I wish we can plop in like Dr. Sarah Silverman to say, like, what do people do? Like, there is no catching up on sleep. There is like, I have a life, I have a job, I need to function. Like, this is where it feels like I don't have a choice and I like don't know what to do about that. And and so I'm trying to just like accept what I can and like make sure I'm, fueling my body properly and drinking a lot of water and all of that stuff. But like, I don't know. It sucks.
Well, I mean, you're such a proponent of the both and using and over but. And this is one of those perfect times that you can do that because you're not saying, I'm going to do it anyway. You're capturing the reality of this is really, really difficult. And I'm not going to let that stop me from giving myself what I need and going to this workout class at 4:15. Like, amazing. That's amazing that you're still doing that because usually that's the first thing to go when we are way too tired. We say, well, there's my workout. There it goes. See ya. And you're not doing that. You're saying like, fuck it. I want it. I'm going to do it. And that's going to make me feel better, even though also maybe resting could make me feel better. But like in this moment, the workout's what I want and I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does and thank you. That's a helpful reframe. And it's also making me think of our conversation with Dr. Shivani Gupta as well. In like when things are more stressful, like we should meet that in proportion with our self-care. And so I also need to kind of keep that in mind and pay attention to the things that I am doing to take care of myself. I know we've had lots of conversations about that and just noticing those things. And whether that's, sitting, am making sure I have lunch every day, have a lunch break, like that I can do. And like leaning into that. And so yeah, I'm trying to just make space for myself, like not crowding myself out of my own life, which can be hard.
I like that. It's a nice concept.
Yeah, we'll see if it works in reality. But I think part of what we're both saying with our self-care is like, and I feel like something that we just discovered in doing this podcast for, 80 some odd episodes is like self-care changes so much. Like it really does change week to week, day to day. And I think I knew that intellectually before we did this podcast, but like I don't think that I really paid attention to how much it actually shifts or has to shift until we started checking in about it every week.
Thank goodness for this and for us.
I know. I know. Thank God for us. But anyway, with our self-care check-in under wraps for now, until next week, we let's shift into our episode today. And you did such a nice job teeing it up and teasing it what we're going to be talking about today in passion versus purpose, or cultivating both of those things or one of those things. So where should we begin here?
I think we need to talk about the difference between purpose and passion.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think the difference is?
Okay, this is a good place to start because I do think there are some overlaps here. With a passion, I feel like that is like something that you elect into, like something that you enjoy, like something that also basically that you do because it brings you a lot of joy. And that's like maybe oversimplifying it. And I know we'll get into it more deeply, but a purpose feels like a little bit more of like deeply tied to values, to what has and a sense of meaning, and also it might be more linked to your identity in a sense. And so I feel like they definitely can overlap. And I think for me, they do in some way, not completely, but I feel like the things that I have a passion for aren't necessarily my purpose.
Yeah, well, I was thinking the same thing, that sometimes your passions can be your purpose, but not every time is your purpose. And not every time is your passion your purpose. I love what you said about identity. I think you're so right. And that like purpose is so much more tied to like you and like who you are. And like almost like your reason for being, like people like to think of it as. But I also think it doesn't have to be so profound like that. It doesn't have to be so purposeful, for lack of a better term. Like it just doesn't have to be. I think that's where people get so caught up in like this idea of like, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? Rather than bringing it down to like the everyday, the day to day, like what gets you through the day? Like who gets you through the day? And why do you get through the day? It doesn't have to be like, because I'm the one who's supposed to invent the internet. Like cool it. Whoa. No, you do not have to be that person. Like, nobody does except for Bill Gates or whoever that was. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're right. I think that's what maybe intimidates people or stops people in their brainstorm, maybe, or reflection about their purpose, is that it tends to not only get big, but also gets very existential. Like essentially, like it feels like, oh, well, in order for me to figure out what my purpose is, I need to figure out what is my ethos on life, and like why we're here. And it just like almost gets so big and abstract that we lose the purpose of finding our purpose.
Right. And we kind of touched on this a little bit in our wellness trends episode when we talked about blue zones, about the idea I think it's in Okinawa, with somebody's ikigai being their purpose. And like one woman's purpose was to just march to the top of this mountain every day to like do something or say something. I don't even remember, but like, and the fact that I don't even remember just means how meaningless it could be to somebody else and how meaningful it can be to another person. That for this woman, that was all that mattered to her. And great. That's wonderful. For me, it could be totally different. Um, and for you, it could be, X, Y, or Z, but it doesn't have to be something so big. And it doesn't have to be like, let me zoom out on the world and contemplate life in this circle around like the candles and
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where like I know like we both had some agreement around, purpose and identity can be linked here. But I think one thing that also makes it challenging for people to begin thinking about what their purpose is that while we are both agreeing that identity is often linked to purpose, I think ego also gets activated when thinking about purpose, because like what might it mean about me if my purpose in life is just am doing that in air quotes, just that I climb to the top of these stairs every day. What does that mean about who I am as a person, my contribution to society? And so I think that is another piece here. And so I think like most of the things that we talk about on Wishing You Well, these big concepts and big ideas, I think a lot of times people just get so caught in analysis paralysis that they don't end up actually beginning to work on a framework that might help them in an actionable way define their purpose.
Mhm. Where do you think this all started? Like, is it just since the beginning of time when people are trying to figure out Earth and life and like let people started thinking of, is it like in ancient Greek times when people are just philosophizing? Like,
I don't know. No, I feel like it has to be more modern, because I think like historically speaking, like we were just defined what our roles would be, like you didn't necessarily get the luxury of thinking about what do I want to do with my life and like what meaning do I want to make with my life. That feels like a more modern idea. And even like as I'm thinking about my parents and, one generation back, like there was some choice, but not a lot. Like, are you going to go to college or are you going to go to trade school? For like my dad, right? And my mom, it was like, are you going to be a career woman or are you going to be a mom? And like that, I know I'm oversimplifying, what things were like in the 70s and 80s. But
no, you're right. I also think like thinking back to grandparents, like they weren't thinking that. Like certainly my grandparents that were like escaping World War II and coming to this country, like they weren't they weren't sitting on their, boat or whatever on their way here. Like, but why are we doing this? Like what's our purpose here? I think they were just doing it to survive.
yeah, exactly. I was just going to say survival was their purpose, or maybe for others, um, you know, growing a family was their purpose. Just like, and I don't know how much of that felt essentially they might name it as purpose. It was again like just what they do. Um, and so I think again having the paradox of choice, um, it's beautiful that we again have the luxury and opportunity to be thinking about this stuff, but it keeps us from actually living our life. Like time is going to pass no matter what. And how much time do we spend thinking about how we're going to spend our time?
Mhm. Yeah. So it's interesting. These days we have more time to think about purpose, but we also end up intertwining it and getting it confused with this other idea that we want to talk about, passion. So I know you touched on this a little bit. I wanted to add to what I think
Yes.
is a part of passion. Like I think it's really like what ignites you. It's like this like spark behind you. And it's like something that you don't necessarily need. And maybe that's controversial to even say that, but like I don't think it's something you necessarily need, but it's something that you want so badly that you think you need it. It's something exciting. I think it's something that kind of like gets you going every day. Whereas that idea of purpose is like that question of like, why do I wake up every morning? Like why do I have to do this? It's more like, ooh, I get to do this. I get to go and, you know, try to hit home runs every day. Like, okay, that's a big passion for some people, right? But like, I think I could kind of pivot here too and say that your passion, like your purpose, also doesn't have to be this huge life-changing thing either. Sorry.
No, it's so true. And like I think the thing like I liked what you were saying about like our passion doesn't necessarily need to be tied to something that we need. I think we need like what I do think that we need is a sense of the spark of joy and excitement. Like I think that's really important for like nourishing ourselves. But like what that's tied to, like I had a client say to me this week in like a very different context. She was like, you know what? I could give a dissertation on the best drugstore mascara that there is. Like, I could speak confidently and excitedly about that. And it's like, okay, that is a passion of hers. Like finding good drugstore makeup, like that, like, why can't that be enough? That's great. And I really want to follow up with her on best drugstore mascara.
Yeah. I would read that dissertation.
I would too. Please make it into a PowerPoint. But like, I think like as therapists, we talk a lot about content versus process. And so I think like the content, so to speak, around like that it's the mascara doesn't matter. It's the sense of like excitement that she had and like animation that she had and liveliness that she had when talking about her excitement about this. That is what is a passion is about.
I think that's such a perfect example of something that can be so small and so honestly meaningless. Like, what does that really do? What does that do? It makes her freaking happy. That's what it does. And that's what makes it a passion. Like, great. I love that. That's as simple as it has to be. Should we end it here? Great. Go find your wait, no, your not department store, your uh drugstore. Like it's not even department store level here. We are drugstore mascara level. Like go find your passion. Amazing.
We did it. But I think that is like I don't know what you think about this idea, but I do think that if someone doesn't know what their purpose is, looking at their passions is a really good place to start. Um, and so if someone doesn't know even where to begin with that, with what their passions are, then I think, yeah, using this example from this client is a good way in, you know, like really trying to think about like what has sparked even a spirited discussion between you and a friend or maybe not a friend. Like where was your last like deep internet dive? What was your last Pinterest board that you made? Like when was the last time you like laughed a lot or felt really interested in something? Or like what documentaries or docu-series are you watching on Netflix or you know any of the streaming services? Like there's so many ways to kind of figure out like what you might be interested in and what you are just kind of eating up. Like that's a really good place to consider what your passions might be.
That is a good idea. I also think it could go the other way too, that if you don't know what your purpose is, but maybe you feel passionate about certain things, then you can look to those to kind of like look underneath them to figure out why, like what is this representing? And going back to what you said like values are very much intertwined with purpose. So if drugstore mascara is your passion, perhaps that says something about your purpose. Maybe your purpose in life, and maybe this has nothing to do with this person, but like maybe your purpose in life is helping people to find the best deals and not just like I don't know, I don't even know.
Well, this particular client, I could say, it like one thing, I don't know that it's her soul defining purpose, but one thing that she feels really connected to and passionate about is helping like women that are close to her feel beautiful in a way that's very accessible to them, no matter what, like no matter what's going on in their life.
That's a beautiful purpose, like so cool, and I love how the two mesh together.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And so like, as you're saying, often like we're not, so segregated as a human. Like what we like and what we are interested in are likely tied to, as you're saying, something deeper. And if we spend a little bit of time looking underneath the things that we're interested in, that like could give us a lot of information. Even if I think about, I know in a recent podcast I talked about how many books I'm reading. What are the books that I'm reading? I'm reading all about essentially like psychological thrillers and like romance stories. And like those two things make sense to me, that I'd be interested in reading more about the way our brain works and why people do what they do and relationships. That's like makes sense to me, that that's what I'm spending a lot of time, my free time, having fun with.
Yeah, and that makes sense to you. And that was so easy for you to connect because I know that you, well, you prepared for this podcast, but you also just are are very insightful and like understanding of any kind of action you're taking because your time is very limited. So you're like, let me make this worth my time. And I also think like for the everyday person who's maybe not a therapist and maybe is a new listener of Wishing You Well, who doesn't know that we talk about self-reflection all the time, that they might just be kind of like doing these things without actually thinking about them. And that's fine, all well and good. But if you actually want to like look underneath and look for this purpose or look for this passion, you're right. Looking at these things that you do on a daily basis are pretty great telltale signs of what else is important to you.
Yes. Like I know we've often joked on this podcast that like self-reflection is essentially the key to living a well life, but it can give us so much information about our passions and then like by extension our purpose too.
Right. And I think that one reason people don't think that they have to give it any thought because they think that it's something that should happen more naturally. Like I'm sure, you know, we both grew up with people that really knew they wanted to be a doctor one day, really knew they wanted to be a teacher one day. And like, I think that happens more, and I think that happens less often than people really think that it does. But it's one of those things where you're kind of just influenced by the people around you who seem to, you know, quote unquote, have it all together or just like know what they want out of life. And you're kind of left being like, oh no, I'm supposed to know and I don't know. Oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there is a lot of anxiety, embarrassment, shame, even to not know. And I know you've worked with adolescents, like going to college or maybe early college students that feel so much stress and shame that they like don't know what major they want. Or I feel like as I've gotten older, I feel like I've been much more comfortable with like the idea of I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And I do know that that is not necessarily common. Like there does feel like there's this pressure to know, and that we should know by a certain point. And I do think like maybe sometimes we feel quote unquote like called to a particular field or path in life, but like more often than not, I think we actually just need to pay more attention and try to find it. It's often coined as finding your purpose, not knowing your purpose.
What you just said and especially what you said about like adolescents and going off to college, but then also like people that are having midlife crises, that there's that whole idea of like finding yourself. And I'm curious as to what your opinion is on finding yourself.
I think you know.
I think I know. Does it sound like falling in love to you?
It does. Well, because I think it puts so much more pressure on it. Like we're here. I think it like if I feel like we here we are.
You found yourself.
Because I think it makes it sound so unattainable. Like I think it would be better worded or framed as like getting to know yourself more or connecting to yourself more deeply, or just, yeah, learning more about yourself. Like that feels more relevant to me.
So what you're saying is you don't have to eat, pray, love your life. You don't have to go to Bali or Italy or wherever else, India, to actually get to know you. You can stay right here.
You can be right here. And maybe for some people, like having an escape from their daily routine and reality and people and have like all of those things that so heavily influence you, like, and create so much noise that you can't really listen in to get to know yourself. Like maybe that's where like a departure from that and having going on a vacation or doing a retreat can be helpful. But like not everyone has the means for that. You can just spend some quiet time alone in reflection, journaling, in therapy, to turn up your internal volume to get more acquainted with yourself. But I think saying finding yourself means that you're lost, or like there's a possibility that you won't be found. It sounds so scary.
Well, and what you're saying now, and like going back to what you said about how this is such a modern day concept, it's also like such a privileged concept to think about, to be able to think about, and like have the time to think about and have the time to actually like dig into what all these things are in like a grander sense. Yeah, the eat, pray, love, deep root, uproot your life, and like Cheryl Strayed, wild, do the Pacific Crest Trail kind of thing. Like that's all really something that not all of us can do. But what you're saying, I love that. Like everybody in one way or another can take 5 minutes to themselves every single day to think inward and look inward.
Yeah, going back to our conversation with
Where are you going?
getting lost. Going back to our conversation with Royce Cook, and just her approach to journaling with the rosebud and thorn method, one of the things that she had said is like coming to the page every day and just being honest with herself. I've been doing her method since we spoke to her basically, and it really is such a good and quick avenue to just, learn about yourself a bit more. Like we don't need these big, fancy, luxurious ways to explore our passions and our interests and our purpose. We have the answers within you.
So we've kind of alluded to this, said this in so many ways so far, that with either of these, you can start really small with things that you like. Like maybe it's hard for you to think about things that you love or like things that just make you so happy, but like just think about things that you like. That could be drugstore mascara. That could be the freaking like tahini dressing that you poured on your broccoli. I don't know. That doesn't even sound good to me, but like that could be really, really yummy for some people.
Yeah, yeah. Or just like candles, like nice scents, like things like that. Like just things that you enjoy.
Oh, I love that. Look at your senses to think about what you like. All 5 of them. And maybe 6 for some of you.
Yeah. Looking at paying attention. I mean, but you're also, what we're talking about here is just becoming more aware. So yes, self-reflection, but also more awareness and presence in what you all are already doing, like what you enjoy from a 5 senses or 6 standpoint, and things that we had said before, like things that might spark excitement, your deep dives, like what's on your algorithm on TikTok, like what's coming up on your For You page, like so that might tell you something about things that you're interested in or passionate about.
Also, odds are, if you're thinking about this, you might not be feeling all that great at the moment. And so I'd encourage you to look at your memories, look back at times that really times that you experienced as a certain amount of joy. I won't even say a tremendous amount of joy, but like, again, start small. Like look at the glimmers. Going back to another episode of ours where we talked to, did we talk about glimmers with with Elise. Yeah. Again, going back to another episode where we talked to one of the Revive providers, Elise, look at the glimmers, look at those little moments of maybe a day or a week or a month that you experienced a moment of joy, and start there and then see where that gets you too.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Another thing I've suggested to clients too, if they're feeling stuck, is to also just think about like podcasts you listen to, artists you resonate with and appreciate. Like that might give you some clue or some idea, along with what you're saying too around memories. Even just trying to think about like finishing the statement, something I've always wanted to do or try is, like, and maybe for you, Catherine, that might be crochet, based on,
No, I just wanted to buy that.
I don't want to make it. I just want to buy it. Okay, fair. I don't want to crochet either. But that might resonate with you, listener.
Yeah, because no one knows what you're talking about. Daisy can adorable crochet set in Fantasy Suites episode of The Bachelor.
Yes. Yes.
I want it.
So yes. So those might be like good places to start. I also, one thing that you alluded to as well from earlier on in our discussion was identifying what your values are. And that might also feel like a really big question. But your values tell you a lot about yourself and about what's important to you. And Brene Brown has a really great list of so many values. And she does suggest that you limit kind of the list down to 3 to 5. But it could be a good place to, again, get to know yourself a little bit more. Think about how your values help you and show up in your life. Do they help you navigate difficult decisions? Do they help you consider like who else is in your life and what the content of your conversations are or aren't? So I think looking at your values could provide a good source of insight too.
Well, that's what we think. So if anybody else has other ideas of maybe like the path to their passion, I'd be super curious to find out. I love when I read about how somebody got to where they were and the kind of winding road that it took to get there. Which is also probably why I'm a therapist too, because I like to understand people. I like to know why people are the way that they are. So yes, if you have an interesting story or have something cool to share, definitely email us. The email is wishingyouvell@revivecfw.com.
Yeah, and we have heard some pretty cool stories about this too. I'm just thinking of our most recent episodes with Royce, with Shivani, with Ginny. Like those 3 women are women who essentially found their purpose like as a result of their passion. And those were things that they felt because they had a sense of need in their life. And so they kind of did some research about it and turned their need into a purpose and a passion, which I always think is very cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's like stemming from strife. Love it. Find your strife. Go get some strife.
Step 1, go through some shit.
Yeah. Learn from it.
I resonate with that. I like that. Last year we recorded a whole birthday episode for Revive, and that was a big thing that I shared too. Like going through something really challenging, I think showed me a lot of these things, what I enjoyed, also what I didn't, what was important to me and what wasn't. And I think in being in a pit, like sometimes like a way to get out of it is to let yourself imagine what things would be like if they could be different. And that is what fueled like a passion. I think it's always been kind of connected to my sense of purpose, but my purpose has evolved as my passion has grown too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, you're a perfect example of from struggle and strife to growing a passion. Super, super cool. This made me think of the miracle question. And I think we've shared that once on this podcast before, but I feel like it's worth talking about in a way here. So the miracle question is something, and also I'm talking to you like you don't know this. Listeners, the miracle question is something that we might use as therapists to ask our clients about, to ask our clients how their life would be like, how their life would be without quote unquote the problem. So if you woke up one morning and the problem was gone, the problem that brought you here today was gone, what would you notice? So it's not about really defining like, oh, my life will be so wonderful once X, Y, or Z is gone, because you can't really like explain that. It's more about picturing it and looking at the little details. Like who's gonna look at you and notice that this problem was gone? Who's going to say something to you? Who's the first person that's going to talk to you? And so it's a really cool exercise to do with clients because you really get to know what it is that is important to them. And then also like having them use their imagination, getting them out of that feeling of stuck, and into this kind of more like solution oriented mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. And well explained. And I think one of the very cool things about the miracle question is like, again, just letting ourselves imagine what is possible helps provide a path for how to get there. And like with the miracle question, it does strip away all of the barriers that like keep us from moving forward in our life, like all of the excuses that we tend to come up with, whether they're real, imagined, reasonable or not. Like with the miracle question, we give ourselves a chance to really just dream a little bit. And then we again, learn so much more about ourselves and what we actually want and need.
So go miracle question yourself.
So we love the miracle question so much. We think it's so useful that we've made a little miracle question template to help guide you. If you're not in therapy or this isn't the focus of your therapy, you can still do it. You can use some of that reflection time to see what you come up with if you ask yourself this question. All right. So I know we, as usual, when we cover these like larger topics, it always feels like it's tip of the iceberg. So along with your like open-ended ask to our listeners to share their stories of finding their passion and their purpose, also let us know what more you might want to hear from us about this topic in particular, and we can go a little bit deeper into it. So you can always email us wishingyouvell@revivecfw.com with suggestions, ideas, questions. We love hearing from you. So that is all from us today. I hope we at least got you started, got those wheels turning, but we will always be back with more to help you along your wellness journey. If you can't wait until next episode to see what we're up to, you can follow along with us on Instagram @ReviveCFW. You can follow Catherine @Catherine Van Eyck, me @Amy Albero LCSW. You can also check out our other podcast, Reactivity TV, where my husband, Chris, and I give our opinions and reactions to, right now, it's The Bachelor season 28. So you can check that out exclusively on our YouTube channel. You can also follow along on that Instagram account @Reactivity TV. One quick ask while I've got you here is if you are watching this on YouTube, or even if you're not watching this on YouTube, if you could head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our channel. We are so close to hitting 1,000 subscribers. We would love to make it there by this season in the spring. Getting to 1,000 subscribers is really, really meaningful from a like content standpoint. And that really helps us begin to monetize our channel a little bit more so that we can also pour all of that revenue back into what we're doing here to help give the best possible content and show as possible. So hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel if you haven't already. If you have, you can just share our channel with a friend and hopefully they subscribe. So thank you in advance for doing that. All right. I think that wraps it up. I think I covered it all and then some. Until next time, we are wishing you well. Bye.